It's Friday night. You just survived one of the worst weeks of your life. Your inbox was chaos, your manager was impossible, you skipped lunch twice, and you ran on 4 hours of sleep and sheer stubbornness. And now, finally, you're sitting in your car in the parking lot, phone in hand, thinking, I deserve something tonight. So you open the delivery app and order the expensive dinner. You add those shoes to your cart. You say yes to the weekend trip you probably shouldn't book right now. And in that moment, it feels completely, totally justified. Because, honestly, you did put in the work. My name is Nico, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. And today, I want to talk about a spending trap that I genuinely believe is silently killing more wealth-building journeys than almost anything else I've ever covered on this channel. It's not bad investments. It's not financial disasters. It's a small, quiet, completely understandable pattern that most of us repeat week after week without ever really examining it. If you're new here, hit subscribe. This channel is going to change the way you think about money. And if this one resonates with you, drop a thumbs up because it genuinely helps more than you know. Now let's get into it. Let me paint you a picture. You work alongside two people. Let's call them Marcus and Jess. They make almost identical salaries. They're in their early 30s. Both work hard, both feel financially stretched, both tell themselves they'll get serious about money soon. But here's the one real difference. Marcus has this thing. Bad Monday, he grabs a nice dinner and a couple of drinks because he earned it. Brutal project finally wraps, new gadget or a weekend away. First of his paycheck drops, he books something because he needs a break. None of it is outrageous on its own. Each individual decision feels reasonable, even justified. He worked hard. He deserves the reward. Jess does some of this too, but she pauses just for a second before clicking confirm. Not every time, just often enough. 5 years later, same salaries, same city, completely different financial lives. And we're going to talk about exactly why. The I deserve this mindset is one of the most psychologically sophisticated spending triggers that exists. And I mean that seriously. This is not shallow or simple. It is rooted in deep human psychology. After stress or discomfort, our brains actively seek a reward. Researchers call it compensatory consumption, the idea that we use purchases to emotionally compensate for effort, sacrifice, or suffering we just endured. A 2022 survey by Empower found that nearly 60% of Americans admitted to spending impulsively as a way to manage stress or reward themselves after a hard period. 60%. And here's the thing, it doesn't feel impulsive in the moment. It feels earned. It feels rational. It feels like the only reasonable response to a brutal week. That's exactly what makes it so insidious. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because this pattern doesn't just cost you money in the moment. The real cost is hiding somewhere most people never think to look. Let's do the math, because the math is brutal. Multiple consumer spending surveys consistently put reward-based discretionary spending somewhere between $100 and $200 a week for the average American. That's the stress dinner, the online cart, the impulsive booking, the extra round on a Friday night. Let's go conservative, $150 a week. That's $7,800 a year. Now, $7,800 doesn't sound catastrophic on its own. It's just a number. But here's the part that will blow your mind. If instead of spending that $7,800 this year, you had invested it, stuck it in a boring broad market index fund averaging a historical 8% annually, in just 15 years, that single year of I deserve it money would grow to roughly $24,500. That's the power of compounding on 1 year's worth of impulse spending. And if you redirected that $7,800 consistently every single year for 15 years, you're looking at well over $200,000. Not from earning more, not from a side hustle, lucky stock picks, or a windfall, just from redirecting the money that currently flows out of your account every time your week gets hard. Sit with that for a second. But here's where the psychology gets even deeper, because now we need to talk about why knowing this information doesn't automatically fix the behavior. The reason this trap is so relentlessly powerful is something behavioral economists call hyperbolic discounting, the well-documented human tendency to dramatically overvalue something available right now compared to something we'd get in the future. That dinner tonight versus $24,500 in 15 years, your brain does not feel those two things with equal weight. The pasta and the glass of wine are real, tangible, and happening right now. The future wealth is abstract and distant, so your brain says yes to the pasta every single time. And the worst part? Your brain has a story ready, a really, really good story. You worked hard, you sacrificed, you endured, you earned this. The narrative is so emotionally airtight that questioning it almost feels like punishing yourself for putting in the effort. That is the trap inside the trap. And here's the crazy part. This doesn't just cost you money, it costs you your identity over time. Because when spending becomes your automatic reward for hard work, you are unconsciously training yourself to believe that consumption is what correct recovery and success looks like. You're building a mental model where the correct response to hardship, achievement, or milestones is to buy something. And that model doesn't stay contained to rough weeks. It starts bleeding into everything. Got a promotion? You should upgrade your car. Finished a brutal quarter? You deserve a nicer trip. Got through a rough stretch? Time for a bigger apartment. Each step sounds completely logical in isolation. Together, they have a name: lifestyle inflation. And it is the reason so many people with genuinely rising incomes still feel financially behind every single month. I also want to acknowledge how normalized this has become, because it didn't happen by accident. The entire modern retail and advertising ecosystem has been carefully engineered to attach itself to your emotional state. Treat yourself. You deserve this. Reward yourself for the week you've had. These are not accidental slogans. They are precision-targeted psychological triggers. Brands, apps, and platforms have spent billions studying exactly when you feel most emotionally vulnerable and financially impulsive, and that is precisely when they show up. After hard days, on Friday evenings, at the end of long months. They know. Every time you respond automatically, it's not a character flaw, it is the completely expected outcome of being human in a system that has been meticulously designed to exploit that humanity. Now, I want to be genuinely balanced here, because this matters. I am not telling you to stop enjoying your money or to live a joyless, financially restrictive existence. That is not a strategy I would ever recommend, and frankly, it doesn't even work. Research consistently shows that extreme financial restriction without any built-in reward leads to binge spending, not freedom. What I'm pointing at is something far more specific. The problem is not the reward. The problem is the unconscious automaticity of the reward. Think about the difference between someone who budgets 2 meaningful, intentional trips a year and genuinely savors every moment, versus someone who books a flight every time things get stressful because the emotional impulse overrides any financial awareness in that moment. Both people are spending. One is choosing, the other is reacting. And that difference, compounded over a decade, is extraordinary. So how do you actually interrupt this pattern? 3 things. First, name it in real time. When you feel the "I deserve this" impulse rising, just pause and say it out loud. I'm about to reward spend. That single moment of labeling it breaks the automaticity. It gives you one breath of conscious choice before the default response kicks in. Second, build a guilt-free reward fund, an actual intentional line in your budget specifically set aside for treating yourself. When you spend from it, you are not fighting your brain chemistry. You are working with it deliberately. And when the fund is gone for the month, it's gone. No guilt, no negotiation, no drama. The third shift is the one I really want you to sit with, making the opportunity cost visceral rather than abstract. Don't just know the numbers intellectually, feel them. When you're about to spend $150, genuinely ask yourself, is this worth more to me right now than what it could eventually become? Sometimes the honest answer will be yes, and that's a real, valid answer. But when you start running that question with genuine awareness,
the equation starts to shift in a way that nothing else can.
Because here's what this is ultimately about. It is about who you are becoming, not just what you're spending. The people who build real wealth, who actually close the gap between where they are and where they always imagined they'd be, they don't mostly do it through white-knuckled discipline or giving up everything they enjoy. They do it by gradually becoming someone who genuinely values what compounding does for their future self more than they value the immediate chemical hit of a reward purchase. They start asking a different question. Not, do I deserve this, but what is this actually costing me? And over time, that shift compounds too, not just in your bank account, but in your identity, your confidence, and in the quiet, undeniable way you move through financial decisions. You become the kind of person who can look at a Friday night craving after a genuinely terrible week and choose with full clarity and awareness whether to act on it or redirect it. Not because you're depriving yourself, but because you finally understand what's really at stake. And that ability to pause, see clearly, and choose intentionally, that is worth more than anything you could ever put in your cart after a hard week. If this one hit home, I genuinely want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what your version of I deserve this looks like. I read every single one. Subscribe if you're not already with us, because there is a lot more of this coming, and hit that thumbs up if this was worth your time today. I'll see you in the next one.